Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is what to say on social media. I've got a little bit of an introduction about myself, but it literally only lasts a couple of seconds, just so I've got some credentials to show that I hopefully know what I'm talking about. And then we're going to go through a quick structure, and it is quick, a series of questions you can ask yourself, which hopefully gives you a structure on what you can say on social media. The reason for this is that we deal with a lot of clients, and the problem you've got a lot of the time is I think I've got to be on LinkedIn, I think I've got to be on Facebook, I think I've got to be on Twitter and Pinterest and all these places, but what the hell do I say? We work with clients who do calibration for car dealerships, people that sell marquees, people that do catering, people that do all sorts of things. And the question's the same all the time. What should I be saying on social media? What should I actually talk about? Because actually, my business is interesting to me, but how do I make it interesting to other people? How am I actually going to get them engaged with me? So we've come up with, over the years, a series of questions that we ask the clients, and the clients are encouraged to ask themselves. And once you start to ask the questions, it gives you things to talk about, and it hopefully gives you a bit of a structure that's not just standing there, basically, what on earth am I going to talk about? What am I going to say? So if I hit the button and the slide moves on, that'll be a miracle. There we go. That is me. That is, I know you can see me on the screen, but that is me as well. That is my favorite photograph of me. I believe that says more about me than any biographical details I could possibly put up. I am unfortunately a complete comic geek, and that is my happy face. At least that's what I'm told. I've been doing marketing for, as you can probably tell by the grey hair, I've been doing this for 30 years. We run an agency and we deal almost exclusively with small to medium-sized businesses within 50 miles of Chester. The reason we did that is we didn't want to actually have to drive so far as we used to. So we work with everybody. They're all, a lot of them are small to medium, everybody from one-man bands or one-woman bands selling scarves. I've got a client that sells scarves and she works out of the kitchen, all the way through to a reasonably sized calibration company, all the way through to quite a big company that I've taken over, Manchester Met University in Crewe. So the bulk of the work is small to medium-sized businesses. So it's focused on delivering stuff for people like yourself. Oh, good, someone else has come on with this video. That's good. As we say, there will be we'll send you a copy of the presentation at the end of this. If you want to ask questions, ask questions. Otherwise, I will just keep going. The first thing you've got to think about when you're dealing with social media and what to say on social media is what every element of social media is effectively for. So what is it good for? What does it deliver? What's it good for the audience? If you understand that, you can actually start to talk to the audience the things they want to hear. So we're not going to go into this in too much detail, but just as a summary, this is basically what each area is roughly for. And it's based on research, it's based on experience, and you might have a different opinion, but still, this is what we see each area is for. So Facebook is all about connections, reinforcement, news events, and stalking. I put stalking in there because I doubt if there's anybody on this call that hasn't looked up one person they went to school with, or hasn't looked up an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend. At some point, you've gone onto Facebook just to see if they still look the same, if they're more successful or less successful than you. We do use it for stalking. We use all of them stalking, use LinkedIn for stalking, but that is one of the reasons people use Facebook. We connect, we reinforce our own views, which is extremely important, because what happens with Facebook and all social media is because of the algorithm, they become a bubble that reinforces your own views. So if you are a heavy Labour supporter and you follow all the Labour posts, all the Labour pages, then you start to reinforce your own views because you start to see stuff that comes through. The algorithm keeps reinforcing your opinions. Instagram is all about consuming reality, what we're doing now. Pinterest is a lot more about inspiration and shopping and ideas. Pinterest is about inspiration and visual sources. LinkedIn is used to be jobs, it's become jobs and connections and research now. You can use it to connect and use it to research your target audiences. Twitter is very good at breaking news. And this is one of the key ones because Twitter is very good at breaking news and live events. And people don't actually use Twitter in a lot of times correctly, and I don't, to be honest, all the time. But if you can jump on breaking news and you can use it every time you're at a live event, that's what it's best for. And YouTube is much more about consuming. The average video consumption on Facebook or on any of the other social media, the duration is quite low. People will, and I'm sure most of us have at some point, gone onto YouTube and typed in how to change the tire on my car, how to change the brake pads, which I had to do recently, how to change the batteries on my NatWest identity card thing that I've got to type into. And we all sit there and we will actually watch a video for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 minutes on YouTube, which we don't tend to do on Facebook. It's a different way of consuming. So if you have some idea as to what the actual media is for, you can start to think about what to say on it. Because in theory, what you say on Facebook should be different to what you say on LinkedIn, which should be different to what you put on Pinterest, which should be different to what you do on Twitter. It should be. Reality is, for most of us, because most of us are small to medium-sized businesses, we're all, although at the moment we probably feel we've got more time, not everybody, but most of us probably feel we've got more time than we need. Once things get back to normal, you will be back to having no time to do anything except run your business and get on with things. So what a lot of people do is they share the same content across each media, and they perhaps tweak it a bit. But in the ideal world, you'd be sharing and talking about different things. The other thing to think about is how long content lasts. And if you think about how long what you're doing lasts, that also should start to influence what you talk about. So I think you can see my mouse moving on the screen for pointing. I hope you can. I'll press admit there. Blogs last for about 2 years. If you write a blog post, that lasts for about 2 years. The reason that's included in this is because what you talk about on social media is what you should be putting on your blog posts. It's what you should be putting on your website, because you should be linking them together. Pinterest average things last about 4 months. YouTube 20 days. This isn't how long they last before they disappear, because they don't automatically disappear on every channel. This is how long they last where people can still have interest in them. After that, they're getting old. LinkedIn is about 24 hours. LinkedIn stuff lasts about 24 hours. Instagram about 21. Facebook 5 hours, but most of the quality impressions you get are in the first 2.5. After 5 hours, in effect, whatever you put on Facebook is, for want of a better word, dead. And Twitter lasts about 18 minutes, give or take. So you have to think in terms of, right, if stuff is only going to last for 18 minutes on Twitter, I need to think about what I'm going to talk about. I need to think about what I'm going to say. So if I'm jumping on the bandwagon of latest news, breaking news and events, that makes sense. If I'm trying to put long form content in there, stuff in there about blogs, I've written this fantastic blog about how to do various things, perhaps Twitter isn't the place to start talking about it, because the duration that it lives, how long it lives, is so small. It's so small. So you have to think about each channel, about how long, what it's good for, and how long it lasts for. What it's good for and how long it lasts for. And then, again, I'm clicking the button, nothing's changing, which is always good. We've come up with 11 questions, and I'm going to go through them. And this is the only point of this presentation now. We're just going to talk about these 11 questions. These are 11 questions that you can ask yourself in order to know what to talk about. And we've done this now with, we've trained probably about 500 people going through from various social media courses that we've run with the university and other places. And we've refined the questions off the back of those and off the back of comments. But these are, so that there's nothing unusual in it, but what it's supposed to do is give you a structure. There is also, as you'll probably notice, some overlap between the questions, because the idea is you ask yourself the question and it drives you down a certain route, but there's always going to be overlap between some of them. So we're going to go through them so give you examples so that you've got some understanding of them. But in essence, it's what's going on in my business. So at any point, we could all write down, difficult at the moment, but we could all write down a number of things that are going on in my business. So for example, you might have won a new contract. You might have opened a new store. You might have developed a new product. I've got a client that does coffee and she's suddenly developing a new mix, a new blend of coffee. There are all sorts, or even a staff member leaving or a staff member's coming in. All sorts of things are going on in your business. And they do form something you can talk about on social media. So what is going on in my business? You ask yourself on a monthly basis, what can I talk about that's going on in my business? Anything, really, okay, anything. Now we'll come to the split of how these things split up and what you should be doing the most of on the next slide, but you can still ask yourself the question. What do I want to sell you? This is key, because unless you are doing marketing for its own sake, unless you are doing it for the sheer pleasure of doing it, and you've got your Facebook profile, your LinkedIn profile, and you love it to bits, and that's all you want to do all day, unless you're doing it for its own sake, at the end of the day, the only reason we do marketing is so we will sell something. That's the only purpose of it at the end of the day. However much we dress it up, at the end of the day, we want to sell something. We want to get someone to buy something. We want to get someone to give us some money for doing something for them. So we have to be aware of, well, what are we going to sell? What's my key? We tend to divide up our campaigns into quarter by quarter campaigns. So we'll say, right, quarter one, what do we want to sell? Quarter two, what are we talking about? So we've got a client at the moment who's got TPs and marquees. So what we want to sell for them at the moment is marquees and TPs and cabins to pubs and bars so they can get the social distancing right. What's it like working here? There are certain things you can talk about, and I'll show you examples of what is it like to work in your business. At the moment, what it's like working in your business is sitting in a room, probably at home. It's quite a hard one to answer. But I'll show you some examples, depending on what's going on in your business. It's sometimes nice to show a little bit under the surface. It's amazing. You've all seen the advert from Amazon where you can book on an Amazon tour and go around the Amazon factory. Obviously you can't now, but I always wonder why anyone would want to do that. But the idea, and a lot of people show a lot of adverts, a lot of the NatWest ads at the moment are all people, and they're focused on the people that work in the business. They're trying to show you what it's like to work in the business. What's genuinely useful? We'll come back. That's probably the most important. The single most important thing you can do on social media is be useful. That is the single most important thing you can do. You want to be useful to your audience. You want to share things that your audience is interested in. That is more important than anything else, because by doing that, you become a trusted advisor. You become, if you can, you become a source of information. You become a destination that they keep coming back to, they keep getting engaged with. And once you've caught them, once you've got them interested in you, once you've got them because you're sharing useful information, you can then hit them with a sales message. But what is genuinely useful is one of the key, most important things you can do. What else will you be interested in? What other things are you interested in? Okay, I can share you useful information about the products. I can share useful information about things that are going on. But there's also other things that you as a customer might be interested in. And the key is to think about what your customers and prospects are interested in. Because it doesn't actually matter if you're bored with what you're putting on social media. It doesn't matter if you're interested in it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't tick a box for you personally. You are not, as much as we like to think we are sometimes, you're not your customers. You have to try and put yourself in the minds of the customer and try and think what the customer wants.
Martin,
so what? Yeah.
I have a question. Does the you in these questions refer to clients and customers?
Customers and clients.
Thank you.
It is all about customers, as I say. When I'm doing it for customers, if you think about as an agency, we do this for people all the time. I have very little knowledge and actually very little interest in calibration for car dealerships. I have very little interest in reality in wedding cars or marquees. What I'm trying to find at all points is what is useful to the customers at the end of the line. So it is irrelevant, as I say, whether if you're fascinated by your product, that's brilliant. If you wake up every morning with a burning desire to live your product and your company, that's great. But most of us are doing a job and keeping going. It's a case of what is interesting to your customers, the you is customers. What will inspire you? That's quite important on Pinterest and on Instagram. You're trying to, what might inspire my customers? What might inspire you to do things? Who else buys our products? That's key, because as all of us nowadays, we all respond to other people. People will believe what other people say. Very few of us have ever bought a product on Amazon without looking at the reviews. Few of us, a lot of us will probably watch a TV show or watch a film and then go on IMDb or go on somewhere and see what people say about it. Because we want to have that our own opinion reinforced. I watched the last episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel last night, and the first thing I did afterwards was to go onto IMDb and see if everyone else thought the same thing as me, because I want my opinions reinforced. So who else buys our products is important. And then what about me? Now, what the me in this is you. This is you as a business. There is a space for a little bit. We kind of call it showing your underpants. There's a little bit of showing what you're about. Just showing beneath the surface a little bit. Not lots, because you're not in social media to talk about you, but we do still buy from people. So I'll give you some examples of this in a minute, but we are still buying from people. So a little bit of what about me. A little bit about what do we stand for, as long as it's genuine. What we stand for is, can you take an ethical or a moral position on something that's important? And do you have the right to do that? So you might have the right to do that because of your business. Your business might be in the healthcare market, or it might be in a charity market, or it might be in something else. But you might, as a person, have a particular interest in something. So, for example, my accountant, for whatever reason, they got them all to do a sponsored run for breast cancer. So by putting up one picture of that and saying, these are our team out doing this, it tells me that they stand for something. It tells me they're interested in something. It tells me that there's more about them than just a bunch of accountants. Not there's anything wrong with accountants. What will our products do for you? What our products do for you actually crosses over with who else buys our products. Because what we want to show, at the end of the day, we want to show what you will get as a customer from buying our products. So if I sell scarves, I want to see how fantastic I'm going to look. I've got a client that does fat reduction through lasers. So she puts lasers on your gut. I know looking at me, you're thinking obviously it doesn't work, but you put lasers on your gut and you sit there for half an hour and you lose 3 inches off your stomach. It's fantastic. What I want to do is I want to see a big fat belly, and then I want to see a slightly bigger belly. I want to see what the products do for you. And what are other people saying about it? This comes back, is again, as I say, there's some overflow, but this it comes back to who else buys our product. We like reviews. We like to see what people saying about us. So if you, every month, write some answers to these questions, by the time, once you start writing the answers, you start going off on tangents. You start writing more and more, and you start coming up with more ideas. So it leads you off into loads of things that you can say. So for example, if you've got a sales team, you can ask them, what are the customers saying? What questions are they asking? What are the 5 questions that the customers ask? Because if we can write down the 5 or 10 questions the customers ask, then we will know what's going to be genuinely useful to them. What was the last question the customer asked you when you were pitching? What was all these various things that you can come up with. But the key as well is the mix, and the mix will be different for each customer, I'm well aware of that, but this is kind of an indication of the mix. Obviously ignore it's not exactly ignore the numbers at the bottom, it's more the scale of one to the other, because it can vary with each customer. But at the end of the day, the predominant thing you need to be showing, the predominant thing you need to be doing is showing people what's useful, sharing information generously about what's useful. So we, for example, we'll spend some time every month going through Google News and various blogs and various sorts of information and sharing stuff that's interesting and useful to the customers' audiences. So if I'm into dermapens and beauty products, I will share information about beauty, about tips, about how to do stuff, how to be healthy. Provided that isn't directing them to a direct competitor, we will share that because that's useful to our audience. It's not directing them back to our website. It's not driving them to our product, but it's useful. And our customers find it useful, and so they become engaged in it. That is the thing you do the most of. What is genuinely useful, followed by what you'll be interested in. The things that you do the least are what about me, what do we stand for, and then what's it like working for you. And interestingly, different to most other marketing, different to advertising and pay-per-click and email and all sorts of other marketing, we do not spend a lot of time about what we want to sell to you. So if we're doing a week's schedule of posts, we might do, let's say 10 posts. We might do 10 posts, one of which is related to our products. The other 9 are interesting and useful to our audience or one of these other categories, but one of which is actually trying to sell something to people. And the ratio, like that ratio means that you will hopefully gain more engagement, you'll hopefully gain more involvement. And you're also not the person on social media who's only interested in talking about themselves. If anyone's got a LinkedIn account, which most of you should have, you can always spot when you go into LinkedIn, there's always posts from people, and you can spot that all they really want to do is talk about themselves because it's from a financial advisor saying, does anybody know any good financial advisors in the area? Or has anybody come across this particular part of accountancy from an accountant? And you all spot that and you'll think, well, that's a bit, I'm not really interested in that. Whereas if they're sharing something, if the accountant shares you something really useful about the furlough scheme, and it's not directed back to them, then you feel that they're useful to you. You feel that they're being useful and you get more engaged. So what we do with the clients and what you develop over time is kind of a split. You write the questions down, you think, right, I want to talk most about what's useful. But actually this month, I've got a little bit more products I want to sell, so I'm going to increase that slightly. I've got a few more images because it's the product's very photogenic and it's summer and we've done some images. So I'm going to do a little bit more about what's to inspire you. And actually, luckily this month I've had a lot of people who've sent me reviews, so I can talk about what other people are saying about us, and I can show other people who buy our products. So the mix changes, and the mix can change for each individual customer and each individual company. But you need the thing to take away from this slide, hopefully, these two are the most important. These two are the most important. If you do one thing on social media and you only do one thing, you should be useful. You have to be useful to your audience. If you do nothing else, if you don't talk about anything else, at least you're taking it, that's still better. That's still taking a step in the right direction. So I'll give you some examples. What time is it? Yeah, I'll give you some examples. So these are some examples of what I want to sell to you. I've deliberately picked non-big brands. These are all small companies. Most of them are in Cheshire and the Northwest, so they're all small to medium-sized companies, same as most people hopefully on this call. So Brew and Tucker, their cafe in Frodsham, small cafe, their response to the lockdown is they started to take coffee orders online and they started to deliver them in the local area. So this is something they want to sell to them. This is something they want to sell. They want people to place orders. This is HF Angling. It's a fishing tackle shop in Crewe. They're obviously trying to sell various products. This is Cheshire Aesthetic Clinic. And as you can see, they've got pictures of people with slightly larger bellies and slightly smaller bellies, and they're trying to sell this to you. Make Events are talking about an event they do in Bowl and Whisk, a small catering company, and this is a set of cakes that they have done for a client. So there is some crossover, because what this one does, this one also says, these are other people that use us. These are other people that use us. These are other people that actually buy products from us. But it's all trying to sell you it is all trying to sell you their products, but it forms hopefully a small proportion. What's it like working here is kind of hard. I find it hard for me because I work from home. So what's it like working here is, well, it's like sitting in a room with a computer doing work. There's not a lot of excitement that goes on when you work from home. So I personally, as a business, struggle with this. Occasionally, I'll take a photograph when I'm doing some training or a networking do, and I'll put that up. But there are things that you can do, and these are some examples. Brew and Tucker is a good example. They had a member of staff leave. And the nice thing about that image is it does give you some of Katie's personality. It manages to give you a bit of the personality of the place, but it shows a little bit of life in the place. Make Events, if anyone wants to follow Make Events, that's a good example of how to do it, because they've got an advantage in that they've got a lot of collateral. They spent a lot of time on their offices and made it really particularly heavily branded. But they show a lot of stuff about what it's like to work here. They show a lot of the team, at least they did. They show a lot of the team, they show a lot of training. And they go on about certain elements of the business. And Cheshire Dining Experience, again, these are happy members of staff. It's just a catering company. It's a nice catering company. It's just a catering company. Happy members of staff, trying to show a little bit about what it's like working for you. Then we talk about what's genuinely useful. What's genuinely useful is stuff that is useful to the audience that is not necessarily selling yourself. So Make Events here is not Make Events, Cheshire Dining Experience. Cheshire Dining Experience share, obviously they're into catering, they've got the right to talk about food. These are some recipes that you can put on. There's recipes that you can do. So it's National Barbecue Week, so it's tying into current news. It's a useful thing to know because it's making a burger that you can cook on a barbecue. If everyone's done it, it's quite hard to do it without it falling apart. It's genuinely useful information. This stuff is all about, this stuff comes from a business that focuses on dentists and is sharing useful information. Useful information about the beauty market, useful information about patients, useful information. At the moment, they're sharing a lot of information about COVID, a lot of information that's useful to their audience. This is something that we put up. It's got nothing to do with us. It's just something from Marketing Weeks. Obviously, we share stuff that's potentially useful from a marketing perspective. And this is Make Events. This directs them. This doesn't direct them to Make Events website. It directs them to the MIT magazine website, because they know their audience are interested in Manchester, interested in events, and interested in venues. And they're being generous. They're not interested in getting people to go back to their own website. They're interested in sharing stuff that's useful and interesting to the audience. Useful and interesting to the audience. So you've got to avoid putting posts up and always linking it back to your own website. That is not the sole purpose of social media. Obviously, when you're looking at things that you want to sell, you'll be directing them back to your website. But when you're being useful and interesting, you've got to be generous. You've got to be generous with the content. What else will you be interested in?
Martin, on those.
Yeah, go on.
Some of the images don't seem, on the face of it, that related to the content.
On these?
Is it, yeah, for example, the arch, is it necessary to have?
That's a good question, because that's Jonathan being a bit weird. Yeah. Sometimes generally, if you can, you make the image related to the content. That's a really good point, and that is actually a bad example. So that's a really good point. Sometimes though, it's not possible. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes you're trying to get when you get to that article, there'll probably be a reason in the article for it to be an arch. But yeah, you're right. 9 times out of 10, if you share someone else's content, the image pops up. When you're doing it on Hootsuite, you put in the link, or you do, and the image up on that they've chosen pops up. But yeah, most of the time you're better off picking something that is relevant. I will, on the next time I present that, change that image, because you're right, you're dead right. What else would you be interested in? It's a bit more of a general thing. It's not necessarily stuff that's necessarily useful, but it's stuff that you might be interested in. So this is an example we shared, Words and Music Festival. We're in Nantwich. Those of you, it's not going to happen this year, I'm sure, but it's a fantastic event. It's a great event. And by sharing it with my audience, who are local as well, they might well be interested in it. The Athlete Factory know that this is a crossover between useful and interesting. They know that their audience are interested in diet, their audience are interested in how to keep healthy. Lewis Reed are a wheelchair accessible vehicle client. And so what they share, as well as wheelchair accessible vehicles, they share interesting stuff about transportation. So that's something that's a flying taxi that is apparently going to be flying around Singapore next year. I think I'm too old to get into a flying taxi. I think my fear would get too much, but it's stuff that's interesting. It's stuff that might be interesting to you. Willow wants our plants, so they know that their clients are interested in flowers, so that might be interesting to their audience. There is a lot of crossover between useful and interesting. It's a slight distinction between the two. The purpose of asking yourself the questions is it just drives you down a slightly different tangent sometimes. What will inspire you depends on the brand. Sometimes it's difficult to come up with stuff that's inspirational, genuinely inspirational. But what you've got to try and do is, this for me is the best example, HF Angling. HF Angling are a fishing tackle shop run by Chris. Chris is a complete and utter angling aficionado. He goes out every morning, or at least he did, angling. All the staff are into angling. Everybody loves angling, and he understands what inspires his audience. What inspires his audience is pictures of people with big fish. He knows that that's what anglers are interested in seeing. So he shared a shed load of pictures of his customers and his friends and himself. The reason he puts himself up is because if he puts himself up holding a big fish, then that means he does know something about angling, which is probably going to give you slightly better advice than if you went to a shop run by me, or if he goes to any other angling shop in the area where the owners are not obsessed about angling. So that's why he shares it. But he knows that his audience are going to be inspired. Blimey, he's caught a big fish, I can catch a big fish. Gemma at Little Red Kiss shares a lot of images of the scarves, the clothes, hopefully trying to inspire people to buy them, to come back to her. And then other people do this is, I don't personally like this style, but a lot of people do it. This is Cheshire Virtual PA. They're trying to get people to think. They're trying to get people to, they're sharing inspirational ideas with people. Again, Cheshire Virtual PA, she understands her audience. She knows what people are interested in, and so that's why she's sharing it with them. But again, you ask, what might my audience be turned on by? What might inspire them? Not what might inspire them to buy, but what might brighten up their day? What might inspire them? Fisher people, that's not a word, anglers are inspired by seeing people with big fish. It comes from an understanding of his audience. Who else buys our product is easy depending on the brand. It's easy depending on the brand. This is something I put up, but the reason I put it up is because if I put up a picture of Holly at Make Events, that implies that they're my clients. And if they're a good company, that implies that I'm a good company. It's completely selfish and simple as that. Little Red Kiss put up pictures of customers that buy their clients. There is a company in Crewe related to HF Angling. They sell dog food. I should have put an example up. Every time a dog comes in, they take a photograph of the dog and they put the dog on Facebook, saying, this is Bertie having coming in, not always Bertie, this is Bertie having come in and bought a great big load of bonios. Isn't he a lovely dog? They're worth having a look at because that is who else buys our products. They don't put the customers up, they put the dogs up. Cheshire Dining Experience, they're showing the customers, and Saving Grace, they're a engagement brand, engagement company. It's showing that they work with other people. If you can get a photo of a customer, if you get a photo of a customer wearing your product or in your product or using your product, then you share it. It's really important if you can get it. Brilliant if you can get it. But the trick is as well, you don't put up, this is our customer, they're really great, so I'm really great. You just share that they're your customer. And you, by implication, if they're a good company or they're a good customer or they look like the right customer, you must be doing your job right. Then a little bit about what about me. These are some examples. Okay, this is this is Chris. This is him as an adult and him as a kid. It demonstrates he's interested in angling. It shows a little bit about him. This is Bowl and Whist. They're a local catering company. They did a show last year. They did one of the Tom Kerridge pub in the parks. So they are a mother and daughter company. So it just shows a little bit of personality. This is a recent one from Stockdale Fencing. That's Tom's kids. Oh, I don't like to use kids in marketing, but it's just all about, it's just showing a little bit that he's a person. This is one I put up. Any of my clients know that I'm a sad obsessive about comics. So just occasionally, maybe once every 5 weeks, if there's something going on, I will put it up. I put it up just because I know that my clients know that I'm a geek, and it just reminds them. And that's something the Cheshire Dining Experience did, just showing, again, just showing a little bit, just showing, as I say, just showing your underpants a little bit, just a little bit of what's behind the scenes. What we stand for is quite hard. What we stand for is quite hard to do because it has to be genuine. Make Events are a good example. Holly is very obsessed about mental health, and she does a lot of talks on mental health, and she's very obsessed about mental health with her staff, so she can post about that quite justifiably. Willow Wand are a good one because they're a plant company. They are concerned about bees. This one is a fairly obvious one. There's no connection between Captain Tom and Stockdale. In fairness, Tom's just jumped on the bandwagon, but knowing him, he does care. And I, for various reasons, put up things about Pride occasionally, just something that, but it's got to be genuine because your customers can pick you up on it. And that's why the Captain Tom thing worries me a little bit, but it's what's going on at the moment. Because if somebody says to me, I can explain the reasons why I've put that up. Holly can explain the reasons why she's interested in that. We can all explain the reasons why we've done it. And then it's genuine. It's got a reason for you to be interested in it. And again, it shows a little bit about you, just a little bit of your personality. The next one's only a few left. We've only got 7 minutes left, but here we go. These are what will our products do for you. On this one, I don't know how they found a picture of me, but that's pretty good. That genuinely does show a real person who has lost 6 inches or 8 inches, I think in his case, off his gut in half an hour. But I know it looks ridiculous. How does that happen? I don't know. I've had it done. I don't know quite know how it works, but it's brilliant. These are people at the Athlete Factory show. This is me before, this is me after. This is Gemma wearing one of her outfits. This is what they'll do for you. And this is actually a really nice one from Stockdale. This is some fencing they've put up. It's a beautiful picture. It's a nice picture, but it's actually just a picture of some fences. It's quite hard to come up with something inspirational and interesting about fences, but that's a really nice picture of some fences. So it's showing what the products will do. But again, that forms that small portion. It's not what you're talking about all the time. But at the end of the day, you need to show, this is a great example. It's very much in your face. Come into the Cheshire Aesthetic Clinic if you're a bloke, have the lasers on your stomach for half an hour, get up and you will have lost 3 inches. And it's a fact. And they're showing you what the products can do. So whatever your product range is, I don't know, I mean, I've got very few real faces here, they're all names, but I don't know what your products are, but they all do something for somebody. Your product does something. It makes somebody happy. It does a service. It helps their business. It does something. So you need to try and show it. Then we've got what other people are saying about us. Excuse me. That's terrible to call. The more things you can have, the more, if you've got reviews or you've got things you can talk about, then put what are other people saying about? What feedback have you got? Have you got a customer that said you're brilliant? Have you got a customer that really loves your scarf and is willing to have a photograph of them? Any customer you've got, what are other people saying? People buy off us. This links into your Google reviews and your social media reviews. They're all extremely important. If you haven't got any reviews on Google or social media, then you need to get them. Because at the end of the day, that's what motivates, that's one of the things that will motivate people to buy. It's one of the things that help you close the deals at the end of the day. They can see that other people have been buying your products and other people are saying that you're great. The purpose of social media is to take people on an engagement journey. You attract their attention, you get them engaged, and then you close. It's standard sales technique. Attract their attention, engage with them, talk to them, and then you obviously go for the close. The engagement part is supported by social media. People check you out. So if you want to use a marketing company, you will look on LinkedIn, you will look on Facebook. If I want to use a fencing company, I will look on the Facebook, on their Facebook, and I want to see that that other people have used them, and I want to see that they are interested in the marketplace. I want to see a little bit about them. And what makes me choose them over another company might well just be that they seem slightly more interested. If I want to buy a hi-fi, am I going to go to a hi-fi shop that shows no interest in hi-fis, or stereos or DVD players or anything like that, or am I going to the person that's clearly obsessive about it and going to give me a good service? If I want to go to an angling shop, am I going to the angling shop run by Chris, who's an obsessive about angling, or am I going to go to the one that's run by Martin, who knows nothing about it? It's about taking people on the engagement journey and demonstrating your knowledge. So what you do, it's the final slide, is you answer these questions. You ask yourself these questions and you write down your answers. And it starts a process, because there is overlap over these things. There's a lot of overlap. But by focusing on each individual one, you start to go down a little line, you start to come up with little points, another point to then scamp off to other points, another point to then scale to other points. You start coming up with more and more ideas you can talk about. But remember, the ones you've got to talk about the most is these in the middle. Useful and interesting. You have to be useful and interesting. And if you are nothing else, if you have nothing else, you don't talk about what's going on, you don't talk about what you want to sell to you, if you just talk about things that are useful to your audience, then you're doing social media better than a lot of people. Because you're not the person who's just standing there on Facebook going, look at me, I'm brilliant, look at me, look at me. Because the person that's standing there saying, look at me, is not engaging. And social media is about taking people on an engagement journey. And that's it. If anyone's got any questions, you can feel free to ask. Or are you all asleep? It's difficult to tell when I can only see 4 faces.
Huge thanks for that, Martin. I think it's been really useful for everyone. We did have a question on one of the first slides, which I've saved till now. Is it good practice to promote your social media channels across the platforms? For example, sharing your Twitter on your Facebook account?
Sometimes, yes. Yes, sometimes, yes. You can cross-fertilise the 3 or the 4 or however many you do. Yes. I don't tend to recommend that we put the same things on each one, although in fairness, for most small businesses, you haven't got the time to really say to yourself, right, I'm going to put this on Facebook, this on Twitter, and this on LinkedIn. None of us do, because you can spend for hours doing that. The ideal is you put different things on each one because you've got different markets. But yes, there is a benefit in cross-fertilisation, 100%. Do
you think there's a good number of social media platforms that businesses should be focusing on?
We tend to start, we always start off with the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is Facebook, because that's where most people are. And if you're not doing it at all at the moment, you start with one, you start with Facebook. You get that so that you're doing it right, so you can do it in your sleep. You then overlay LinkedIn if you're a business-to-business brand. You might overlay Twitter. Most people, we start with Facebook, add LinkedIn, and then you pick the ones that are valuable to you. Pinterest, because it's about shopping, it's about inspiration, is useless in some ways to certain brands. If you're, it's not of much value to me, for example. I focus on Facebook and LinkedIn. A fencing company doesn't do a lot on Pinterest. Instagram, they don't do a lot on Instagram, but Gemma Little Red Kiss, who does scarves, does Facebook and then Instagram. She doesn't do LinkedIn because she's not trying to target businesses at the moment. So we start with Facebook just because it's where everyone is, and then you overlay. I wouldn't try and do more than three. I think it becomes one reason I don't like doing more than three for most clients is because you can get a free Hootsuite account as a small business. The Hootsuite account allows you to post is free, but you can only have 3 accounts. So if you want to have more than that, you've got to have 2 Hootsuite accounts or start paying, and most of us don't want to pay. But 2 or 3 is manageable. You have to also bear in mind, if you think about the length of time things last, you have to question the value of spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours crafting something that's going to last 18 minutes, or spend hours and hours crafting something that's going to last for 2 hours and it's going to reach 40 people. You have to question that sometimes on social media because, so I think 2 or 3 is about the most businesses can handle without going to somebody to do it for you. You know, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then another one, depending on whether you're B2B land.
And that was going to be another question on Hootsuite. Do you recommend using scheduling
Yes.
programs like
Yes.
that?
We always use Hootsuite with the clients because it's easy to use, and if you're a small business, you can get a free account that allows you to do 30 posts on 3 accounts. But if you want to, there are other ones. Sprout is good, Buffer's good. But yeah, but what you've got to be wary of is doing what you can do on some of these accounts. You could post, and you can create loops where you're posting your Twitter post every 10 minutes. And it's in a loop that's going round and round and round and round. You've got 24 posts. They go out each hour and they keep going. You don't do that. Just do it sensibly.
Okay. I know, Soren, have you got a...
Yeah, I was, thanks Martin for that. That was amazing. Thank you. I heard somewhere, I read somewhere that if you use something like Hootsuite, the algorithms don't like that. Is that a fallacy?
Well, that's a bit of a fallacy. The algorithms don't like you to be posting too often. And they say that the algorithm is designed to go for engaging content. It's what it says it's designed to do anyway. If you're posting stuff that's interesting to your audience, that your audience is engaging with, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter where you do it. If you set up on Hootsuite and you post the same things every 2 hours, then that's bad, because then it's starting to say, well, you've got to think about it. If you're not bothered to do it, if you're not bothered to think about what you're doing, then the algorithm will pick up on that. So if I've got the same thing and I'm sending it out every day or every other day, then I'm not really thinking about it. I'm not really bothered. And the algorithm picks up on that and says, well, you're not really trying to be engaging, so therefore you go down. So no, if you use it sensibly, I mean, most of the time with our clients on Hootsuite, we will post maybe 2 or 3 things a day across Facebook and LinkedIn, maybe 2 things, maybe 1, depending on the audience. So every day something goes out, and we've never seen any negative impact on that. No.
Okay.
It's where you set up the loops. I don't know why I'm waving my arm quite enthusiastically, but you get it's too much. But you have to remember as well, anybody that tells you anything about the algorithm, you have to bear in mind the company's objective and the company's reason for creating that algorithm is not to help you, is to sell your advertising space. And nobody actually knows what's in the algorithm, so take everything with a pinch of salt. If somebody tells you this is a fact about the algorithm that I know, yeah, well, unless you work at Facebook, unless you work at Twitter, unless you're in charge of it, I would suspect you don't really know, because I don't know. Nobody really knows. So take it with a pinch of salt.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
And the final question, is Hootsuite the same as Buffer?
Similar. They're all similar. I say Hootsuite because I use it and I know you can get a free account, which for most small to medium-sized businesses, a free account is what we want. But yeah, they all allow you to schedule posts. Sprout is another one. Sprout is though £100 a month, so that's quite a lot. I used to use it, but I don't now. Hootsuite is the cheapest and the easiest to use, I find, but other people do other things. One thing on Hootsuite, if you want the free account, if you haven't got one at the moment, you go into the website, you have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the website to find the free account. Then you click, I want the free account, and then it says, are you sure? And then you say yes, and then it says, are you really sure? You're missing out on A, B, C, D, F, G, and you say yes again. It's quite a pain to find. You have to find it right at the bottom. But it's worth the effort because it does what you need. It's also very easy to set up.